Did they kick prayer out of churches? Why are most in the churches all messed up? Is it just that they are imperfect people? Or is it something far more sinister? I will get into some aspects of this in this video, so please bear with me as I talk about several aspects of this in light of Scripture. I also plan on giving a testimony on this of what God showed me. Jesus warned in Matthew 24, as the first thing as a sign of his soon return was that many people would claim that he, Jesus, is the Christ and deceive many. Then Jesus warned not to be deceived. How many in churches actually read the Bible daily, seeking to hear and be taught by God directly, instead of some man named pastor once a week? What is to stop this man from teaching falsely? What can we do to seek to avoid being deceived on top of reading the Scriptures daily? How many teach and practice to watch and pray as God tells us to? 1 minute bless me and what I want to say doesn't count. In multiple places in Scripture, it is recorded that Jesus cleansed the temple, and what did he say? He taught, saying to them, "Isn't it written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all the nations? But you have made it a den of robbers." Mark 11 in this instance. Right now, the temple of the Lord is each of us individually, as well as the people gathered together as the church, or called out assembly, not a building. And how many churches have weekly prayer meetings where they actually pray for the meeting, not some 1 minute at the end prayer after fellowship instead of prayer, but calling it a prayer meeting? God will not be mocked. How significant is this? Before I tell a short testimony related to why the churches are so messed up, prayer is talking with God meetings. Prayer is not only speaking to God, it is listening to God as well. It is waiting to hear from God. Prayer is communicating with God. If you are only telling God your needs, then you're missing out on waiting on the Lord to mount up with wings as eagles and fly above the storms and hearing God speak to you. All throughout the Bible, God talks of hearing his voice. Jesus says his sheep will hear his voice and follow him. Prayer is important. Matter of fact, the prayer incense altar in the Old Testament temple was right before the Holy of Holies to get into the Holy of Holies, and was considered also inside the Holy of Holies, as mentioned in the New Testament in Hebrews. Prayer is entrance into the presence of God. That is what God was showing. The curtain is torn and everyone has entrance through Jesus, which means that you, through Jesus, can boldly approach the throne of grace and have talking with God meetings in the presence of God. And I'm not talking about the mystical, heretical NAR practices steeped in occult. A few years back, I was talking with God in prayer, and I felt led to approach a bunch of churches to ask them to pray with me and my children weekly for each of the churches, their pastors, members, sick, elderly, and needy and such, to find out who was hearing from God and who wasn't. In many places in Scripture, Christians are told to watch and pray always. For one reason is so that we may be able to stand before the Son of Man when he returns. Another reason is to be ready for Jesus' return. Another reason Jesus gives is to avoid sin. And Scripture mentions how those that pray for others, if they do not help them when they have the ability, but only say, "I wish you well," then they show they do not have saving faith. So I went looking for those that know God and don't just provide lip service, having a form of godliness. I went to about 30 churches in my area, and all the churches in my small town. I asked them to pray with me and my kids. I asked them what their Talking with God meeting schedule was. You know, their prayer meeting schedule. And if they didn't have one, will they pray with me and my kids, even if it's just me and the pastor and my kids? Simple. Let's bow our heads and pray together. Something that crosses all denomination barriers. What do you think the pastors in churches wanted to do? One pastor laughed at me. One repeatedly and adamantly, point blank, said that that church doesn't have Talking with God meetings, fully confessing they do not hear from God. The replacement pastor to that church agreed when I told him about this. Another pastor couldn't get off the phone quick enough when I explained I was looking to pray with him and my kids. Another pastor refused to call me back after I told him I was wondering what their prayer meeting schedule was. Another church said they just do 1-minute prayers, and maybe we'll have a half-hour prayer meeting before some revival service, but nothing more. Even after I pointed out that is probably why they are not seeing revival stay in their church, and they agreed what I said was correct, still didn't care to have have prayer meetings. Another pastor agreed to meet and pray, but then had multiple family dying when we tried to set up a meeting schedule, and then refused to call me back, even after grieving time. Another church agreed they needed to have prayer meetings and agreed to allow me and my kids to come weekly and pray in their parking lot, which we did for about 6 months. But nobody from that church showed up, and the other churches never returned my calls, didn't care. There was only one church that had a prayer meeting and cared to meet and pray with me and my kids. That was the church that I had started the prayer meeting at under the previous pastor about 5 years earlier. None of the other churches cared to watch and pray for one another. Prayer is vital for the health of a Christian and church, to help in avoiding sin and false teachings, be ready for Jesus' return. We are to share one another's burdens and to pray for each other. We are to pray without ceasing. Which of the virgins do you think these churches and pastors were behaving like? Wise or foolish? They say they kicked prayer out of schools. They kicked prayer out of churches.